Record. Hi, this is Moses Jacobs for the DeBarra Spoken Word, and I'm lucky enough to talk to Emmet O'Brien, who is sitting right in front of me on screen, but you're in Dublin at the moment, I think.
Yeah, in Dublin. In Dublin.
Yeah. And where are you in Dublin?
I'm based in Ballybock, which is basically the city centre of Dublin. I'm right beside the city centre, about a 10-minute walk from the Square and O'Connell Street and stuff.
Oh, okay. Okay. And where are you from originally in Dublin?
Originally, I'm from Cabra, which is just north, the north side of Dublin. Basically, it's a little bit further away from town, but not too close. Inner city, the inner city.
And the what?
The inner city of Dublin, it's called.
Okay, the
so
inner city. Okay, I thought you said NRC. But okay, you're a spoken word poet, very much so, and you're also a written word poet. Mm-hmm. And you've done something about the Northside in Dublin. Can you tell me a little bit more about what it is for people who don't know, because they might be in a totally different country?
Yeah, so the Northside was a poetry video that I shot. I think it was the second poetry video I ever shot. And the video, you can find it on Facebook and YouTube. It basically just tells you the kind of misconceptions and stereotypes that people have, and also the reality of people living on the north side of Dublin. So a lot of the times, for people who don't know, Dublin is broken up by the River Liffey. And there's a kind of a misconception that the south side of Dublin is very wealthy, very posh, and the north side of Dublin is kind of poorer and less desirable, should we say. And it's just a complete misconception. But also, there are some realities growing up where I grew up on the north side of Dublin that kind of rung true due to socio-economical issues. So I kind of wanted to bring it all together and kind of say, well, this is the reality, what it's like living in this area at this time. And yeah, that's just what the video is about, basically.
Okay, thank you. And can you say a little bit more about your personal reality growing up on the north side? I mean, are you from a, what kind of family are you from? And
I'm not like, personally, I had it like the area that I was from was a great area. I'd say, like, some people would say it's not, but I think it was an amazing area to grow up in, with a family that were great working class people. Do you know what I mean? Like, I never really grew up in, should we say, too bad of an environment. Although some areas of it were definitely toxic, it wasn't a bad environment necessarily. But people still kind of think that you do because you have an odd number on your postcode. So I always kind of felt like where my personal issues came with was the idea that people had in me, as opposed to how I actually grew up, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But growing up for me was great. Like, obviously we are from an area that maybe was sort of underdeveloped, you could say, and we didn't really have the amenities that people in other areas had, but we made do with what we had. And in terms of the community around us, our community spirit was second to none, and we had amazing people surrounding us. You can find beautiful people in the inner city of Dublin and on the north side of Dublin.
Yeah, you mentioned the word toxic, which I think is very interesting, because you can grow up in a toxic family that is a billionaire family, or you can grow up in a harmonious family in relative poverty. But there is of course, there are also toxic neighborhoods, I think, where people leave because it becomes too violent, and other people move in because they have no other choice. So how would you say that your own neighborhood would range?
Yeah, I mean, like, there were definitely areas that I would say I like that. My area definitely wouldn't have been. I mean, there were definitely areas around where I lived that you would kind of, let's say, you would avoid walking through on a dark night, should we say it that way, But the issue with that at hand is that some areas are just left to rot. They're completely underdeveloped, and there's just thousands and thousands of these skyscraper apartments going in with no amenities for kids, and then kids are growing up bored. And if kids are growing up bored, that's going to turn them to a life of drugs, life of crime, and then they may not get a job and they can't have the money, and it's a vicious cycle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So some areas were definitely let to just rot. They were just let to become areas that people didn't want to be in.
Okay. So can I ask you, how old are you now?
I'm 23 years of age at the minute, yeah.
And when did you start writing poetry, and how did you start writing poetry?
Oh, geez, I started writing poetry when I was about 14. I think I was about 13, 14. I went through a series of events in life that kind of inspired me a lot to talk about. I kind of experienced stuff in life that I said people would want to hear about this, so I need to talk about this. It was kind of a form of venting. I had a friend pass away and stuff like that, and I just kind of said, these are words that I want to let out, and I feel like people want to receive. Because during that time, during hard times in my life, I always confided in art. So it was a very subconscious beginning for me in terms of writing. But I always loved to write, just write out events what happened. And then I kind of eventually became rhyming and stuff like that, which turned into spoken word. But originally it was just always page poetry and just more so an outlet of emotion. So I think I was about 14 when I started writing. And then I think I started performing and writing spoken word when I was about, I'm going to say about 18, 19 years of age. So, yeah, it was always there. Like, it was always in my life.
And were you influenced at all by rap? Would
Yeah,
you
hip hop.
consider this a kind of rap hip hop? Did you do
definitely.
rap battles as well? Hip hop?
No, I wouldn't necessarily be into any of the battles and stuff like that. But when I transferred from poetry to hip hop, it was definitely listening to the like of beat poetry or rap itself. I'd be a fan of rap, but I was a big fan of also just kind of people who talked a lot during music, even, you know, or the like of Saul Williams and stuff like that. These beat poets that can Kate Tempest that can put music and words together in a way that might not necessarily be singing, might not necessarily be talking, might not necessarily be rapping. It's very free and very open, you know.
Okay, great. And would you say that do you have a lot of emotion when you perform?
Oh, when I perform, yeah, absolutely. Because I feel like there's an element in performance, you're very vulnerable. So I like to feel vulnerable. And then also when I'm feeling vulnerable, it releases more emotions, and I start thinking about how I was feeling when I was writing, and I kind of say to myself, this is the time that I can let everybody know exactly how I feel. And there is a lot of emotions, particularly when you're writing about topics that hit home, personal topics, or discussing past events in your life, or maybe even political elements and stuff. It can get extremely emotional. Sure, it's, at the end of the day, it's your art. It's your creation. It's your piece. It's almost like your baby, you know. So showing that to the world can be a very emotional thing in itself, really.
Do you mind me asking what kind of emotion it is? I mean, would it be anger as well as sadness, or just emotion? I don't know.
I feel like there's everything, you know. I feel like there's been times that I even remember the times that I've gotten off stage and saying to people, like, I'm feeling something, but I don't know what exactly it is. I'm just feeling a lot. It depends really on the topic. Like, there's a lot of times that I would talk about stuff in my past growing up that would make me really happy if I'm talking about like good times with parents or good times with friends. But then also there's times that I talk about, like, I have poems out there about religion and how I broke apart from religion. And when I'm performing that, it's obviously very, very sad, very angry, very frustrated. And then when you start performing, all the emotions that you were feeling always come back up. So you're obviously feeling then nostalgia and kind of how time passes. And it's just a lot of emotions, a lot of the time.
And would you be emotional across the board, or would you really have this intensity on stage specifically?
No, I think I'd be an emotional person. Sure, I think to be a poet, you kind of have to be, I'd say, in touch with your emotions. But it heightens a lot when I'm on stage. I feel a lot of myself when I'm not on stage, but I wouldn't really express it. And then when I'm on stage, I feel it and I express it. And then after that, in turn, it creates conversations with other people. And so then it's kind of a gateway for me to kind of get to that level of releasing the emotions, you know?
Okay, great. You also do live performances a lot, and you've restarted this after the pandemic. I mean, how large would your audiences be?
Well, the last gig that we done was Workman's, so I think that was about 120, 130. But it depends. Like festivals, you could have a couple of hundred there, and then but you could go down to an open mic, and like I like I do put on gigs, but I also would go to open mics on Monday or Tuesday, or I like to go into kind of community centre. So it really, like, it varies, you know. Like I could be doing an event of workman's on a Saturday and then going to a outreach on a Tuesday. I just feel like no matter what, if people want to hear it, I just have to give it to them, you know.
Okay, and do you feel that that people resonate with you? Is that what you feel? Do you feel emotion from the audience as well?
Yeah, I mean, at times, I mean, some gigs are always better than others, and you can pick kind of the right set on the wrong night at times, if that makes sense. You can pick the wrong set at the wrong times as well. But yeah, there's definitely been cases that I've felt an emotion. Emotions have been felt across the board, and then there's also times I kind of say, right, I need to kind of talk about more funny stuff here because people won't want to listen to emotional stuff, you know?
Yeah. And you also worked with I saw a video, I can't remember her name, but is it called I Know with a singer, or is it a different name?
Oh, you know it. Yeah, we covered we done a gig with RT2 FM where people wanted to take old Irish songs, or kind of like, not old Irish songs, but just Irish songs and Irish hits, and then kind of reimagine them with poetry. So we done a cover of You Know It by the Republic of Loose, and I kind of done my own little version to that. Yeah, that was a good bit of crack, that was.
Yeah. And do you see yourself like singing as well, you know, sort of do more with
No, I wouldn't. Before I done poetry, I used to sing a little bit of trad here and there. If I'm drinking a couple of pints in a pub on a Friday, then yeah, I'll do a couple of ballads or something like that. But no intention on going anywhere near singing anytime near too soon. Okay. I spent a long time building a fan base, and I'm not going to let that run away.
Okay, great. I could ask you a lot more, for example, about masculinity. You have a piece called The Perception of Masculinity. And what is it about?
That was a piece. It was semi-fictitious, and it was a poem that I wrote about going through 3 stages of life, 3 ages in life. So I think it was about 6 or 7, 13 or 14, and then 21, 22. And it was told in the perspective of a man during that time, and how we as men are subconsciously fed toxic masculinity throughout our life, to a point of where it's just evident and breeds, but we have no idea why, because it's just been force fed to us. So, for example, like when the first verse is when talking the perspective of, say, a 6-year-old, and he's talking about his cousin coming into the house, and he says, oh, it's funny because my cousin will come in and he'll be with his friends and he'll laugh so much that his eyes are red, and he's sloppy at times, and he'll tell me to go upstairs, but he'll fall and this, that, and the other. When in reality, that's just a man who was growing up that is using substances, trying to show off, too drunk all the time, trying to look after a kid, and he can't. Stuff like this, you know, and how from a young age, looking at that, you can just see it as something pure innocent. But the harsh reality of it is that that's laying you as a man, that is making you, what's the word? It's laying the foundation for you becoming a toxic man, basically, you know.
And what is a toxic man? Somebody who doesn't.
Toxic masculinity is, in my opinion, it's when men conform to the idea that they must be the perfect man. So they must be this, the strongest person there, the person that doesn't cry, the person that will always be there for people, that will never have an issue. He has to be the all. Do you know what I mean? And that's an idea that men have as a result of a patriarchal society being evident for millennia, that we feel we have to support people. We feel like we have to be number one. We have to. A real man doesn't cry. A real man provides. A real man does this and that. You know.
Real man nukes Ukraine.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's rotten, like, you know, and it's something that's really an issue, and it leads to, in my opinion, it leads to men kind of not knowing what to do with their life, which in turn leads to maybe alcoholism, substance abuse, suicide, mental health issues. It's a real issue. So I kind of wanted to do a poem about that, but I didn't want it to be a preachy piece. I didn't want it to be a, oh man. No, let's talk about what it's like being a lad growing up understanding that a society he lives in is wrong, and understanding that he's destined to become a statistic.
Great. Okay, you've published 3 books of poetry so far. They're all sold out. You're going to reprint. Just a few words. Your future. How do you see it? Small question.
bright and prosperous. Yeah, I don't know. Like I don't think I'll ever stop working. Do I think I'm gonna keep doing poetry? Probably not. I'll probably get more into performance, acting, and stuff like that. But writing and poetry and playwriting is always going to be a passion of mine, you know. And I'm always going to write. I'm always going to produce.
Great, thank you very much. Well, your future, but we're now speaking on, what is it? 28th of February, 2022. And we'll see you on Zoom for DeBarra's spoken word on the 9th of March, next Wednesday. And then live at DeBarra's, our first gig after 2 years of pandemics, on the 23rd of March, 2022. Thank you very much for speaking to me. That was really interesting. And
thank you very much as well.